The Pittsburgh Steelers have absolutely demolished the Atlanta Falcons in the third preseason game and final one for both teams. So, this is a full game recap and everything that we saw throughout the game. Let's start off with the stats from each team. Like I said, the Steelers beat the Falcons and blew them out, actually shutting them out 24-0. So, Kenny Pickett, he played 2 drives for the team. He went 4 for 4 with 86 yards, and also Mitchell Trubisky, he went 7 for 9, 54 yards, and then Mason Rudolph 3 for 7 for 16 yards. When Tanner Morgan came in, he only went 1 for 4 with -5 yards. So that's how the quarterbacks did. But running the ball, the Steelers offense did amazing. To start off, let's start with the starter Najee Harris. He had 4 carries for 18 yards. And then Jalen Warren, he had 2 carries for 14 yards as well. Anthony McFarland Jr., 10 carries for 55 yards. But the main thing that you see with all those 3 running backs I just named is Najee Harris. He scored a touchdown running the ball on the Steelers' opening drive. And on the second drive, Jalen Warren, he scored a touchdown. And then when Anthony McFarland Jr. came in the game, he also had a touchdown. So the 3 running backs on the Steelers roster who are more than likely going to make the team and be the 1, 2, 3 stringers for the Steelers, each got a touchdown in this game. And also you see there Connor Hayward, he had 4 carries for 11 yards. So that's how the running backs did. But now let's move over to the receiving game and the wide receivers. We saw Deontay Johnson have a big play down the sideline for 1 reception, 33 yards. And then we saw George Pickens have a long reception down the next sideline, the right sideline, for 1 reception, 35 yards, putting the Steelers on the 1-yard line, and that's when they got the touchdown running the ball. So the Steelers wide receivers had some big plays, and Kenny Pickett made some big throws down the sideline, having some chunk plays for the Steelers offense. The rest of the wide receivers, and just receiving the ball in general, Connor Hayward, as you see, he had 2 receptions for 27 yards, and Calvin Austin, he only had 1 reception for 8 yards. Gunnar Olszewski, 1 reception for 8 yards. Najee Harris, 1 for 16. So the Steelers receivers, that's how they did. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball now, just looking at the tackles, the person who had the most tackles for the Steelers was Elliott, their newly signed safety that they brought in this offseason. He's fighting for a practice squad spot, and he had 4 tackles, leading the team. Moving on to who got sacks for the team. Nick Herbig, he added another sack during this preseason game. He had 1.5 last game, and he's put on a show during the preseason. He had 1 sack for the Steelers this game. Elandon Roberts also had 1 sack. Ndukwe, he had 1 sack. Quincy Roche finally got his first sack. And also the Steelers' TJ Watt, their superstar. He got a sack as well. That's great to see TJ Watt being back and healthy and putting up production and having 1 sack in only 1 drive that he played. So the Steelers, that's how they did with the sacks and the defensive side of the ball. Their team in today's game did not have any interceptions. In last preseason game against the Bills, they had 3 interceptions, so they didn't have any turnovers other than a forced fumble that Mark Robinson and Joey Porter Jr. basically combined for, as they had a forced fumble on the running back. But this is how their defense played, shutting out the Atlanta Falcons. Going over to the special teams side of the ball, Chris Boswell, he added 3 extra points, and he also added a 38-yard field goal as well. Potter, that's BT Potter, he missed his only field goal attempt. And moving over to punt returns, Calvin Austin once again showed out with the punt returns, having 4 returns for 53 yards. And Anthony McFarland Jr., he didn't really have a good time kick returning, but he did put up some yards in the kick return game. 1 return for 21 yards, but he should have just stayed in the end zone. So that's how the Steelers special teams did. Moving on to the Atlanta Falcons, because I'm going to cover the Atlanta Falcons as well. So their Woodside quarterback, the guy who came in as their second string quarterback, he had 24 passes complete in 31 attempts for 196 yards. Taylor Hallock, he had a 0 for 2. Also, running the ball, Washington, he had 13 carries for 27 yards. And Woodside, he had 2 carries for 9 yards. And the other running back they had 4 carries for 4 yards. So the Steelers really held the rushing attack for the Atlanta Falcons to a minimum. Going over to the receiving game for the Atlanta Falcons, Harris, as you see, had 6 receptions for 70 yards. Sexton, he had 3 receptions for 29 yards. Washington, 4 for 28. And also Whiteside, 3 for 28. So altogether, the Steelers really held down the Atlanta Falcons in both the rushing attack and the receiving attack. All out, blowing the Atlanta Falcons out, having a really good game, having a really good showing in the final preseason game. And also the defenders on the Atlanta Falcons, on their very first 2 drives, when the starters were in the game, they're having a hard time. But in the second half, that's really held the Steelers to barely any points. When Mason Rudolph came in the game, when Tanner Morgan in the game, in the second half, the Atlanta Falcons defense did better against the Steelers. But that's what you would expect. You would expect the third stringers and the fourth stringers to not really put up points, but when the first stringers and second stringers were in for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's when they showed out. But altogether, the Pittsburgh Steelers absolutely showed out against the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go in more depth of a video tomorrow and in future days coming up, kind of talking about this preseason game, talking about certain players who showed out specifically and what they could bring to the actual season as it comes along very, very soon. But all in all, this is how the Steelers did versus Atlanta Falcons. It was great to see them have a good running game, having a good passing game, and their defense just all around playing well and just playing all around a good game. If you remember against the Bills last week, the Pittsburgh Steelers at one point were winning the game 27-0, and we thought maybe they would shut them out. But Kendrick Green hit the bad snap, putting basically Bills on the 1 yard line, having a quick touchdown, and then things started going downhill from there. They still ended up winning the game 27-15, but that game could have easily been a blowout as well, 27-0. So the Steelers, they almost blew out the Bills, but they did blow out the Atlanta Falcons. And this is the full game recap of this game. Let me know down in the comments below, how do you feel about how the Pittsburgh Steelers played in this final preseason game? Are you excited for the regular season? And do you believe the offense could be high caliber as we've seen? And just to give you a heads up, the Steelers scored the first stringers whenever Kenny Pickett and the starters were in the game. They scored on every single drive a touchdown during the preseason against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Bills and this game as well. So the Steelers scored a touchdown whenever the first stringers are in the game. Let me know your thoughts on this game in general and the Steelers offense and everything else for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the regular season. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel down below as well. If you like Steelers content and analysis reports, like the video, turn on post notifications down below for this channel as well, so you get notified whenever I post the next Steelers video. I cover everything Pittsburgh Steelers. I want to do more of these recaps in the future after every Sunday and after every game of the regular season. So if you like this video and like the recap of what I did in this video, let me know down in the comments below if you want me to continue it. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you guys all later. Till next time, I'm out. Peace.